Hello, everyone. I go by Jay, and I'm a DevRel engineer over here at Midnight Foundation. Today, I am joined with both my colleagues, Samson and Idris. And Samson, would you like to introduce yourself, followed by Idris?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Samson, and I'm the developer engagement manager here at Midnight. Really excited to be here. Honestly, I've always been on the back end, so it's good to always, sometimes show my face publicly.
Nice, glad to have
Yeah.
it on here. Idris?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Idris Olubisi. I am the developer educator on the DevRel team, and I'm really excited to be here once again. I think I was here last week or last 2 weeks. So it's really exciting to, come back and have a chat. And today we have a lot more to talk about. Yeah, and I'll be passing the mic back to Jay. You have the floor.
Awesome, thank you. So it's great to have you on board. And I wanted to reach out to you both to talk on this Dev Hangout because it revolves around a topic that you're both super passionate about. I've heard you talk about it multiple times in our organization, and that is open source software, and more specifically, Hacktoberfest. So, first, let's cover open source software. Over the past few weeks, the foundation has made an effort to make more of our repos public and open source and available to devs. So we have Midnight JS and our Midnight documentation that is now public. You can go there, submit PRs, and contribute. So now anyone can raise an issue, make a pull request, and contribute to those spaces. We've also launched the Community Hub with Stev, where anyone can raise bugs, request features, they can create proposals for content, dApps, and doc updates. So now we have tons of different ways for us to contribute, and this sets the tone for us to participate in Hacktoberfest. So, Samson, for those who aren't familiar, can you explain what is Hacktoberfest?
Yeah, sure. Hacktoberfest is a very interesting program. I'm using the word interesting because over time it's sort of a different program in some level. But basically, in the more focused on it is like it's an open source 1 month long celebration in open source. Basically, a month that is dedicated to people contributing back to the open source community. So, um, beginning of October to the end of October, you have the opportunity to collaborate with project that you're very passionate about. Just to kind of give you a 1 second, just to kind of give you an idea of like what that looks like. Can you see my screen?
Yep, I can see
Oh,
it.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. So if you go to hacktoberfest.com, again, like I said, it's a program where, everyone have the ability to contribute to open source for about a month. And of course, it all starts with a pull request. And that's something that is very, very important for us because again, as we grow the community, we want people to be able to, contribute to stuff that we're doing, and we've been open sourcing our repo, gradually. And again, it kind of makes sense to sort of like get folks in here. And I think the really cool thing about Oktoberfest is that you can be both, non-technical, but also like technical. You can contribute things from design to, video to technical writing to, just even organizing meetups in your local city. What is important is that you want to go to each organization and find, depending on the repo level, you want to make sure that there's like, the Hacktoberfest, tag on each repo. Again, you can learn more on the website just to kind of like give you. Trust me, I hate using slides. I just wanted to show you real time. So again, the goal here is again just to make sure that you find, ways that you can find issues. Most of the issues, again, mostly tagged Hacktoberfest. Some of them you see with like good first issues. I know we have some that we're still cooking on the back end, which Jay is going to be talking a lot about soon. But again, just kind of give you an idea of like what Hacktoberfest is. And in the future, we hope to use this as a test to see how the community likes to contribute and one of the ways that we can improve. And again, we want to make sure that we expand this program. Even have something local to us. Within Midnight. So again, more to come. So yeah, that's all on my end. Idris, do you want to touch more if I missed anything?
Yeah, I think you pretty much like covered like everything about October 1st. I will just share my own personal experience with Hacktoberfest. My first full paid opportunity was due to like contribution to, I think, an open source project like way back. It's a React framework, and then I contributed to the docs at the time, and I became a maintainer. That story lives on like forever for me because I get to work with a lot of people, like remotely, and at the same time, opportunity to contribute to something like the community is contributing to at large. And that experience, changed the way I think about small impact or like small contribution and then big impact, right? And also how you can do this type of contribution on any project. And today we'll also be showcasing like all of the repos that we have available that you can contribute to. And this is exactly the way it was for me then. I checked out those repo, I found an issue. I also created an issue myself. Like when I noticed that there's something missing, I just went ahead and then created and then sent a PR that got reviewed at the time and then got made. So it's an opportunity for anyone listening right now to contribute at large. If this is your first time hearing about Oktoberfest, I think Samson already touched on like what you need to know. If you need to read more about it, just check out oktoberfest.com. And also we'll also be going through like some of the things that you need to know. And we're happy to like we have like first issues or like good first issues that you can try out at midnight. So that would be really, really helpful for you to get started in the open source world and also contributing to midnight. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of which, I think I missed this part. I think one of the cool thing about Hacktoberfest, you're in the spirit of open source. Like if you, if there's something in the community that you want to work on, or you want, again, we already have the contribution board, or now called Community Hub. You see something that you think makes a whole lot of sense, and you want to work on it in Hacktoberfest. Again, all you need to do is just open an issue, and then we're going to be templatizing it, making sure that it's ready for you. Because the cool thing here that I also missed is that when you get some pull requests merged by us, the DevRel team at midnight, you get swag from the Hacktoberfest organizer, because they have a way to like track those repo. But again, one of the cool thing that Idris also mentioned is that if you're trying to expand your engineering skill set, or you want to put yourself out there, this is one of the simplest way that you can get people mostly focused on. So again, that's one of the beauty about the program. So yeah, Jay, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your experience, Idris. Me personally, I've heard about Hacktoberfest within the past year, just from different developer groups. So I was excited to get started, but you two have actual experience. So it was awesome when you brought it to our attention and said, yeah, we need to do this. So Samson, I'm curious from your experience, because I saw you were recently given a reward for like open source also. So can you speak a bit to your experience with open source contribution in the past?
Yeah, open source is actually like part of my, at this point I would say, part of my DNA, which is interesting. It's cool because I started writing code. I'm trying to figure out what they call it in the US, but I think I was still in grade school when I was writing code at the beginning, and it was true open source. I had a computer which was running a Linux distro, and I was frustrated because I wanted to run a game and it wasn't working. And then, I figured that the game that I wanted to run was based on Windows, and then I was using, Linux, and it was interesting. And then due to that frustration, I then discovered that, oh, there's a different operating system. And then there's like different plugins and all that. And then that's eventually how I got involved in open source. So that, I've been in open source for over a decade now, actively, participating in multiple ways. And then also, I think one of the cool thing being in open source is that, especially when you do DevRel, like the work we do today, it's a lot cooler, because it sort of like allows you to be in the community real time. You get to collaborate with the community, get to build in the open, and it's no brainer, because again, that's kind of like the fundamental of Web3, right? It's like the beauty of the blockchain. It's like completely transparent, and people come together and build really cool stuff. So yeah, so the stuff that you referenced was the GitHub Star program, which is something that GitHub runs. I'm part of this program that GitHub runs, which is like the ambassador program. We're like I think we're about 80 people globally, so I'm like one out of like 80 folks. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting journey, and I've always been excited about that. So
awesome. Congrats on your progress within open source and all of your contributions. I want to thank you both for kind of going over Hacktoberfest. And now I'd like to get into our specific requirements, what we'll be doing over here at midnight. So let me share my screen so I can go over the guide. I put together this dev diaries earlier today for everyone viewing. I'm sharing my screen now. Let me know if you can see this. It should be loading in a second. Yeah. All right. So I put together this contributor guide for this Hacktoberfest. Let me zoom in. Looks like that looks better. Okay, great. So here's a brief intro on Hacktoberfest, which we just ran over, which is it's a global open source event every October where developers can contribute pull requests to public repositories to earn digital rewards. So at midnight, we're joining by making our repos open source, but then giving you tasks that you can also contribute to, from smart contracts to dApps to core libraries and documentation. So here's how you can get started. First, go over to hacktoberfest.com and sign up for your accounts. Let me share the screen so you can see this one. So if you look at your Hacktoberfest account, it will look something like this. Once you've signed in, you need to connect your GitHub account to the actual Hacktoberfest website so that it monitors pull requests from your GitHub account. So you can see I'll log in here. You just have like a GitHub login or GitLab login. Once you log in, you have your profiles. You'll see the different pull requests that you've made. So you can see your linked accounts here, more details on the rewards that you can qualify for. And then down here, you can see the different pull requests that you've made. So see, I made a request earlier in the month, and this pull request was accepted. I can review it on GitHub and see it later. So this is how you can monitor your progress within Hacktoberfest. You can see all the different pull requests that you've submitted, and you can see where along the pipeline they are, whether it's been accepted, rejected, and you can take action from there. So now let's go back to the contributor guide. Okay, so once you've registered, you can begin going to our community hub, and you can view all of the different tickets that we made available. So I realized, let me actually just share my screen because I'm flipping between multiple tabs. So let me share my entire screen. Cool. Let's see. Okay, so this is our community hub for anyone who hasn't visited this before. You can see our details on how do we take in issues from bugs, from feature requests, content suggestions, all the templates that you have available for creating those issues. And then you can go into our issues tab and find the different pieces of content that people have proposed. So as you can see here, our most recent ones are tagged with Hacktoberfest. So if you are participating and you're looking for things to do, you can look for this Hacktoberfest label. So we can go here, see Hacktoberfest. And then you'll be able to see all of the current issues that qualify for Hacktoberfest. So you can pick this issue up. In this case, if it's a piece of content, go through it, review what the summary is, what the idea is. And then what we would like is for you to create the piece of content, provide us with a link here. We'll assign this to you so that you can get credit for it. And then we'll update the tags to Hacktoberfest accepted. And once that's been accepted, you'll see these updates on your profile, as I mentioned earlier here. So we've gone through that process, tested it earlier, so I can see that my pull request was successful. All right, let's go back to our registration. So things that you should know about this is that GitHub is rewarding you, and Hacktoberfest moderators are rewarding you for 6 high-quality pull or merge requests between the beginning of this month and the end of this month. So if you made a pull request earlier in the month, I can go back and look at those issues, tag them for a Hacktoberfest so that you can get credit for those as well because it was within this month, so you can still get credit for that. So you can only submit PRs between those dates. and we'll be reviewing up until the first week of November to give you credits for that. As you're contributing, please review our contributor guidelines. You can see all of our instructions here within the repo that details how to get started, all the rules, things you need to follow. If you're like submitting code, pieces that you need to include in your code, things of that nature. So now Hacktoberfest participation. As I mentioned, look for issues labeled Hacktoberfest within our board. That's within our community hub. Now for docs, if you want to submit a pull request to the docs repository, you can find that one here. So submit a request directly to the docs if you're submitting an update to the docs. Now for our core libraries, we have Midnight.js, which you can also contribute to. If you figure out there's a better way to do something within our library, you can make an update, make a pull request, and have the team see that. And then our no-code solutions. If you see something that you want to do and you don't necessarily see a ticket for it, you can create an issue on our community hub using either one of these pieces of either one of these templates. So we have the DAP proposal, content proposal, and documentation improvement. So if you decide, hey, we need a piece of content to explain something a little bit better, you can use the content template, create a new issue with it, and then put a link to your actual content where you solved that problem. We'll take a look at that issue, acknowledge that you addressed the issue, assign it to you, and then we'll give you some points. So as I mentioned earlier, once we reviewed it, we'll change the label to Hacktoberfest accepted, and then you'll start getting credits on the profile in your account. Now, the other thing is that, of course, we have this Hacktoberfest going, and you'll get rewarded for that. But we also decided to create Zealy quests and make them available for Hacktoberfest. So I'll publish a few later, but give me 1 second. But I'll publish a few later. But we have our Midnight Zealy quest that you can always view and see the different build quests that we have. Build quests like submit a PR for documentation, technical requirements, things like that. So essentially anything that you're doing for Hacktoberfest, you can also get credit for on Zealy. So look for those quests under the Hacktoberfest sprint, and you have up until the end of the month to get Zealy points for that as well. So check out our Zealy quest as you're submitting your PRs, and let's go over our rewards. So Hacktoberfest, they're giving a digital badge. So anyone who completes this, you'll have this on your GitHub profile. You can say, you know, you've contributed to open source repositories, and you can show that you've been given credit for it. Now the swag for the first 10,000 participants who successfully submit the 6 PRs, they'll be getting a t-shirt. And for every t-shirt that's given, there'll be a donation for tree planting. Now, acceptable contribution types, we kind of went over most of this, but of course, code updates to Midnight.js, some technical documentation, things you see that we're missing or need better explanations, other things like technical blogs, case studies, copywriting. We have a whole list of things that you can check out and explore to contribute. So if you're ready to start contributing, you can go over to our community hub, as I mentioned earlier, and you can click on our issues, go to Hacktoberfest, and you can see all the available tickets to contribute. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And that's how you can contribute to Hacktoberfest. So what I just showed you is actually a local file right now running on my computer. I will make a pull request after this and make that available to everyone else who is viewing so that you can see it within our dev diaries. There will be an entry for you to follow the instructions there. Now, in other news, some of the other things that we've been working for on the open source side of things is Midnight improvement proposals. So we've been talking about this idea of not only open sourcing our repos, but allowing people to contribute content. And now what we would like to do is slowly move over to this idea of involving the community in some of our decision-making processes. And we have a few improvement proposals that are out there that we're starting to talk about internally that we want to slowly share with the community. So either next week or the following, we'll have Stev come onto a chat and share those details with you all so that you understand the process, what we're expecting, and how to contribute as well. And now we can hop into our community updates. So over the past few weeks, we were participating in different hackathons. And one thing we noticed is that we had a lot of good examples for people to pick up, get started right away. And one of the things that we kept getting as feedback is there's a lot of deploy scripts and a lot of these examples, and it gets us to publish our contracts. But a lot of people wanted to know, how can I take a contract I designed from scratch and make it deployed and make it available on the network? So to go over that part, we updated the getting started, more particularly Idris updated the getting started with Stev. And I'd like to turn it over to Idris so that we can talk about how to deploy smart contracts. Idris?
All right. Thank you so much, Jay. I think I'm just going to like quickly share my screen and head over to it. So we'll be strictly using okay, 1 second, please. Oh my God. I think sharing my screen. Just give me 1 second.
And while Idris is working on that, I do see some questions in the chat. So I see which page you're referencing the dev diaries. Yes, that is local. I made a pull request. I'll have that merged later today. So be on the lookout. I'll post in our channels for that. And I can also go back to the YouTube and post a link there for anyone who's viewing on the YouTube.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Idris. I think it's probably coming up again.
Okay, I'll just go through some more questions I see here on the side. Mesh, Lewis from Mesh, we at Mesh are cooking up MCP server for midnight. Stay tuned. Yeah, I've seen a few people working on MCP server like things. We have a Web3 Fast, which has the compiler. You can completely create a contract with AI and deploy it. I did see your AI tooling. I think you posted that in the forum, so I'm going to check that out later this week. Any of these kind of toolings, I'm a super fan of, particularly AI. I'm a huge fan of, so I'll check that out. And we do have a Mesh.js update later in the segment. But if we're having trouble with Idris coming back on, maybe we can skip to that. And see, Lauren, he's always the one producing these. Let's give Samson some love. Yes, Samson, thanks for coming on stage. For putting all these together. It's been awesome.
Yeah, so if you all have questions or you want to address like real time, you can use the comments. So we'll probably do like a couple Q&As while we wait for Idris to come up.
And are we missing name tags? I think we have name tags because I saw John posted earlier. I see it on the screen.
Oh yeah. Okay, I think I can. Idris is here now, hopefully.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that. I think I don't know what went wrong. Anyways, I was trying to share my screen, then all of a sudden everything got frozen. But
wow.
I think I'm good now. Wait, let me share the entire screen so you can bring me up on page.
Awesome. We can see it. Well, it went away, but yeah.
Yeah, 1 second. All right. So I just shared my screen. All right, perfect. So yeah. So like Jay mentioned, we have like different process. If you want to get started with Midnight today, one of the things that we've gotten feedback on, and also particularly from our own like insight on what can we do to improve like the developer onboarding experience. One of the interesting use case here is to find how developers could get started easily. And that is why we've prepared the Getting Started guide. And this is currently live. You can try it out on your own. But what we are going to quickly do in this session is we are quickly going to go over it. I've done a couple of installation. If you go to our docs and you click on Getting Started, you see this part that says installation. And then you see a couple of things that you need to install. You need your browser, Google Chrome browser installed, and you can see a link to install this directly from the docs. I've already installed that, so I don't need to click it. But if you haven't, you just need to go ahead and click on Add to Chrome and then add the extension. After that, you need to create a wallet. But here's the thing. You need to create a wallet so that you can use it to test a couple of things directly online. But also in the Getting Started guide, the Hello World example that we'll be going through in this session, We have wallets that also get created for you locally, so you can as well use that too. And then finally, you also want to get the test, the TDOS token, which is used for you to test your transactions, particularly on testnets. And you can see like step-by-step guide on how you should get your test token to get started. Then after that, you need to install Compact using the script. So the cool part here is that you can just copy the script directly and then install. Once you install, you can run compact-vv. I'm going to run that right now so you see what that looks like. Let me know if my screen is big enough. Um, can you see my screen? Like, is it okay, Samson or Jay?
I
If
think
you
you might wanna zoom in a little bit. Yeah.
Zoom in, right? Okay, let me keep zooming in then. How is it now?
yeah, it's better.
All right, so we have, I just ran the command now and show me that I have like Compact installed, which is the same experience if you have everything installed correctly. And then we can then go back to the docs where we can set up like our proof server. So proof server is required for you to generate zero knowledge proof, right, for transaction locally. And it's going to run, like keep running in the background. So if you don't have Docker, you need to install Docker. In my own case, I have Docker installed already, so I can just start it up. So if you're on Mac, you just need to start up your Docker. If you're not on Mac, if you're on any other OS, then what you might probably just need to do is to um, install Docker, and then you run this command to start your proof server, and then leave that running in a separate terminal. Because what we're about to do, going through the deployment and everything will be happening locally. And then after that, you also have this option to install the Compact VS Code extension, because we'll be writing like Compact contract. And you might need things like highlights, autocomplete and all of those things, which is very helpful for you as a developer to quickly build your application. The next thing we want to do now is to go through creating your first midnight application. And in this example, we are just going to be creating a very, 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 very simple Hello World contract. First, we want to create the Hello World contract. Second, we want to deploy the contract. And then finally, we want to be able to interact with the contract. So you can see step-by-step guide here to create the contract. And I'm just going to, let me see if I can have my, all right, so I'm just going to have this side by side so that's going to have this side by side, and I hope this makes sense. So now we have, this command that we need to run. I can just decide to copy and then paste the command. What this is going to do for us is to create a new directory, and then we cd into that directory, and we initialize the npm package using the command npm init-y. And then we can create a new directory called the source directory and the contract directory. And our folder should look like this. So I'm going to head over to Visual Studio Code. So we see what it looks like. So what I'm going to do again is to bring this out. 1 second. Okay. So we can have our VS Code and this side by side. Close this. All right, so we have this, and then the next instruction is for us to have for us to start like our projects and start creating them. I'm trying to see, I think I did create 1 second. Okay, so yeah, I can see we have this. Okay, yeah, we have the contract folder, and then we have the source folder we just created now. Next thing we want to do is to create the the contract file itself, which is hello world.compact. So if you go through like the step-by-step guide on the doc, you find like all you need to add to this particular file. And then that's starting with the pragma directive, which you need to, every contract must start with a pragma directive, and this declare like the compiler version the contract needs to use, and also what it is compatible with. So to start with here, we are just going to paste in add the language, sorry, the compiler version. And then the next thing we want to do is to import like the standard library. So why do we need the standard library? Because the standard library already has like a couple of functions available to you for your contract development. So once you have it imported, the next thing you can just utilize some of these functions out of the box within your contract. So to add that, we are going to just import the compact standard library. And then the next thing we want to do is to define the ledger session, right, for the contract. Because think of it as defining like a schema that helps you store your data programmatically on the blockchain. And this variable can be marked as exports to make them accessible from your dApp. So if you have your contract and you want to interact with contracts, you need to make sure that it is marked as export so that you can be able to call the function directly on your contract. So the next thing we want to do is to go ahead and create the ledger. In this case, we want to just create a message variable to hold our message, in this example, hello world. So what we just need to do is to call out the message variable and then assign it to opaque string, which is the data type for assigning string to a variable. And then the next thing we want to do is to define the circuit itself. So basically, you can follow through the docs one after the other. The circuit itself is a function of compact smart contract itself, and it helps directly compile to zero knowledge circuit. So you can write all of your functionality or your implementation directly within the circuit contract. And according to this example, what we just want to do is to create a circuit that can store a message, and the circuit takes in the value that needs to be stored. In this case, you can store anything, but in this example, we are writing it in such a way that at the end of the day, if we want to deploy, compile, or interact with the contract, we can specify any message, but to start with, we can just specify hello world, and then we'll be able to like save it, and that should work for it. And that's the entire contract that we have today. This is a very basic contract, but it gives an idea of what compact looks like and also how to get started with compact. So the next thing we want to do is to compile this contract that we just created. And you can also find the command to do that directly. So I'm just going to paste that here, and this should compile for us. Right. So this compiled a contract, and if you check the directory, you see that we have additional files that gets generated automatically. These are artifacts, right? And the structure just looks exactly the way we specified it in the docs here, where you can find it under manage hello world, then / hello world, where you find the compiler, the contract info.json file, the contract itself, the contract folder, the keys, and the ZKIR, right? So each of these folder was just like generated automatically. So the contract contains your compiled contract artifacts, which include like the JSON needed for deployment and front-end integration, just like the way you do with any contract. And then the other one stores cryptography proving and verifying keys for zero knowledge proof, which is this keys folder. And then we have the zero knowledge intermediate, representation of your circuit, which helps you like to bridge your compact code to the ZK backend. So this is what this folder stands for. And then finally, we have the compiler folder that holds like intermediate file used by compiler during the build process. And you all see all that plays out in action in a couple of steps. So now we're done with writing the contract and compiling the contract. The next thing we want to do is to deploy the contract. So I'm just going to head over to the deployment doc. Okay, going on. That's strange. Second.
Maybe it's just all the streaming, all the services and stuff going on all at once,
Yeah, because it's usually like a click, like it just clicks and
Yeah,
then works. Strange
yeah.
is loading, but um, so I think we should be there in a second.
And this is the exciting part because this is the new content that was put out there. So for anyone who's been watching our docs, this was actually deployed yesterday, the next 2 pages that we want to cover, which is, deploying your actual contract on the testnet. So let's just give it a
Yeah,
second to see it load.
I think I'm just going to try it. My Chrome browser has been really messy. Maybe that might be another reason. Okay. All right. So let me see. It should work. Okay, now we have like deploying contract. For some reason, I don't know why that takes forever. But now if you get to the deployment part, you can see that the deployment is just a build up to what we have already for after compiling the contract. So the next thing we want to do for deployment is um, being able to deploy this contract after compiling. And then you can see that you already have the hello world.com part, which is this contract file. And then we have the artifact already inside the manage folder. And finally, we have the basic, package.json file. So the next thing we want to do is to update this package file to include the required dependencies for deployment. So now I'm just going to paste that directly in there. And then we have that settled. The next thing we want to do is to run npm install, and then that should install the new dependencies, directly. And while that is installing, we can, let me try to duplicate this and just clear. Sorry, oh my God. Okay, yeah, we can create the ts.config file.json. And we have that created already, and that is currently empty. The next thing we want to do is to go ahead and add the compiler options for this project. And finally, we can then create the actual script that will be used for deployment. So you can use this simple command to do that. Source file exists. Okay. Okay, yeah, so that's created already. And okay, I think I ran a command, but we now have the deploy.ts file. Let me just double check. We good. I think I might have to delete this and then okay. I think I know what happened. I think the next thing we want to do is to say touch this, and now we have the ts file. Then, so now this is where things get interesting, right? Because the TS file, this deploy.ts file is where we have all of our configuration on importing the necessary package and then also implementing every other thing that needs to be done. So now the first thing we want to do is to import, all the packages that we need for this project. And I just, added that. After that, we also want to, yeah. After that, the next thing we want to do is to add the network configuration and helper function. So This particular one helps also I configure um, create a configuration that connects to our testnet and then also define like the connection endpoint and every other thing that the system needs to monitor the wallet until it receives token from the faucet. So now I can just go ahead and add this to create the configuration. And then the next thing we want to do is, okay, I think I didn't copy that. Let's come. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. We have the TS configuration, and then we have the command here. For some reason, I think I have to like separate it. Yeah. Okay, good. So now we have like the setup configuration up running and a couple of things that we have here. You can see we have the connection endpoint itself, and then we have a method that um, that waits for funds or like that keeps track of the funds state of the wallet state and make sure that whenever we have like balance updated, we can preview it in real time. And then the next thing we want to do is to create a main function. This main function is where every other thing happens. Things like creating an interface connection, setting up the wallet seed that we need for this particular deployment and all of that cool stuff. So now we can add the main function here. Am I experiencing the same thing? No way. All right, so let me do that real quick.
I feel like sometimes those coding suggestions mess things up more than they help.
Exactly. I think that's what I'm currently battling with. But I'll figure it out. 1 second.
I've definitely found that while writing compact and using
Yeah,
cursor, yeah, it's always recommending things that just don't make sense.
exactly. I think but the interesting thing that we also did to this doc is if you scroll down to the bottom, you see like the complete file where you can just go ahead and copy and paste the entire file. And hopefully that should help. I'm not sure if I'm still experiencing the same thing. 1 second. Okay, I think I know what's going on. I think we have a particular line. This line of code breaks up unnecessarily. But yeah, we'll figure it out. 1 second. Okay, then we can go ahead and copy this. The next thing. Let me see if I can copy the main function without problem. Mhm. We can go through. All right, I think we have that settled now. So I'm pretty sure it's my like VS Code that is just misbehaving, and the auto completion thing is just messing the entire process. But one thing interesting here is that every step and each actions that you're about to do when you are coding along, it's indicated here so you can follow through step by step. And also beyond this section, we'll have like a full-blown tutorial for this, going through everything one by one from scratch. And yeah, so the next thing we want to do is now that we have like the entire code setup, the first thing I want to confirm is I have my Docker up and running. And to do that, sorry, I have my proof server up and running. To do that, I'm just going to copy this. I think we don't need this anymore. Okay. So I'm just going to keep this up. And this is going to like start the proof server locally. I can leave this up and running here and just go ahead and then, so I'm just going to continue with compiling and deploying the contract itself. So the first thing we want to do is to run build, and we are just going to build the project. Let's see what's going on. Okay, I think 944. The Lord of Live demo is here.
I mean, I think worst case scenario, we can debug it a bit later. But what I really wanted to go over was that we have some scripts, some deployment scripts that are available. We need to do a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah.
But this will have the end-to-end on how can you create a app from scratch to compiling the contracts, understanding all of the different folders, and then actually deploying the contract on testnet. So as Idris mentioned, we're putting together the docs. We have some up now. If you're going through that, provide us some feedback with what you're experiencing so that we can make those updates.
Definitely.
Any other things you want to touch on, Idris?
So now this is like the deployment, and then the interaction is the last part, which is like the fun part also, where you get to interact with the deploy script, going through it one after the other, and also like following step-by-step guide. And then at the end of the day, you would be able to set up a CLI that interacts with your contract that you just deployed. And you can do things like storing message, because that is what we have here in our contracts, our compact contract to store message. So you can interact directly, and that calls this function itself to store any particular custom message that you want to save in. And that's it. So you are now able to run from creating a simple contract, or from creating your contract to deployment, to compiling and deployment, then finally being able to interact with your contract.
Awesome. Thank you, Idris, for the presentation, going over this, and putting together these docs and testing with the team over the past week and a half, from when this was risen to us to actually providing the developers with the tools and resources they need. So thanks. I'm excited to reference some of that code myself to deploy my own example dApps, which I'll be sharing with the community in a week or two. I'll be open sourcing that and moving that over to the Midnight Foundation's repos. Now, earlier in the conversation, we mentioned that we are open sourcing our repos. We have open source no code contributions in the form of content. And I briefly teased this idea of MIPs, and Stev joined us right now. So I'd love to get back into that conversation and talk about MIPs with Stev.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Idris, for your presentation. Thank you for the intro, Jay. So MIPs, Midnight Improvement Proposals. So as things are becoming more and more open source, and we pursue different.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Idris, did you say something?
No, please go ahead.
No worries. So as we go to open source, and we have open source environments, and people are going to be maintaining those environments. And at the end of the day, imagine we have decentralized environments, or at least as the end goals would have something like Midnight Preview, Midnight Pre-Prod, and Midnight Mainnet. At least that's where that's where we're heading. And when it comes to Midnight Improvement Proposals, obviously, these things are going to have to be adopted with community input, feedback, and it have to be championed through each environment to where it becomes realized in mainnet. So that's why we're pretty early on in the Midnight Improvement Proposal process, just because it's a pretty standard process within other ecosystems. Some of you might have heard of the Cardano Improvement Proposal process, and in Midnight, I'm going to just zoom in here. In Midnight, we're trying to have some parity with Cardano, because we're a Cardano partner chain at the end of the day, and Cardano has done a lot of things pretty well. We definitely don't have the hardcore governance that they have. I mean, they have like governance on chain. So much research and effort has been put into that. And, we aspire to have great systems as well. So we're going to be trying to follow in Cardano's footsteps the best we can, or at least take the best things or lessons learned there. And so we have the Midnight Improvement Proposal process. Now, if you go to the forum, there's this MIP1 that if you go to the forum, there is a category that says Midnight Improvement Proposals. There's actually a lot of, I think there's like 4 improvement proposals that are actually being proposed in the repo as well. But we have MIP1, and there's been a collection of people in the community, just a short group of us that have been kind of talking about this, and we want to open up the discussion more with the community. And October 27th, we're going to have a core call. One of those topics would be to talk about Midnight Improvement Proposals and go over any feedback input. I know some people have already commented on some issues, but we want to solidify MIP1. So if you want to have an impact on, defining the Midnight Improvement Proposal process, this is a great opportunity and a great way to be involved. So if you go to this forum post, basically it will take you to the open source repo, which is the Midnight Improvement Proposals repo. It looks a lot like any other standard improvement proposal repo, but we really want to get requests for comments on MIP1, which is to define the process. So there's a proposal for how the process would be. If you have input or suggestions, you can create an issue and discuss it in the issue. And you may also be able to, you're welcome to also use the forum at your disposal. But yeah, but I just want to really just say that the MIPs exist. MIPs are coming, and it's an open source repository, and the process is also open source and transparent. And if you like the process, disagree with the process, or you want to contribute to how the process should be, come to the repo, create some issues. Feel free to open stuff in the forum, and we could discuss those. And we'll also have an opportunity to discuss those on October 27th. And that's kind of it. And we'll probably have it in a Discord call or something, but we'll share the event details in the future. But yeah, go check MIPS out and come contribute.
Awesome. Thank you, Stev. It's awesome to see all the different ways that people can contribute. I want to thank you for joining, and I'll continue on with the other updates that we have from our community. So we have a Midnight Summit coming up in November 17th through 19th. If you haven't heard about it, our applications are still open. The applications will be closing on the 24th. You can go to our website, view our hackathons, and you can find the application for the Midnight Summit there. So you have a little over a week to still apply. I encourage you, if you are working on privacy enhancing technologies, apply to the Midnight Summit. It'll be an awesome time there, and it'll be great to meet everyone. So that's our update for the Midnight Summit. Now our MLH fellowship kickoff. So we did a hackathon with MLH. We saw 4 teams come out of it. There's 4 awesome projects that we're excited to nurture and grow from an idea and some basic code to an actual application that could potentially run on our network and build businesses with them. So to the teams, Eclipse Proof, Brickchain, Helix Chain, and MedProof, we're all excited to meet you. Congratulations on your win. It's going to be an exciting week. On our next updates, we have Mesh.js. While I was reviewing the forums, chats, Mesh.js has done a lot of work over the past week. If you're monitoring the chats, Lewis posted that they're working on MCP servers, but they also pushed out a node package. So there's a new package that's available that you can download and start working with now. I can share the link in the chat, or I'll pass this to Samson so that you can share it in the chat. But that's the link to their package. It looks like Lewis is in the chat too. So if you have any questions, we have a forum thread going where he's sharing kind of the package, and we have a brief discussion there on it. So check it out and see what Mesh is working on. If you're not familiar with Mesh.js, it just comes with a bunch of tools for you to interact with wallets, for you to interact with smart contracts, and it makes it a bit easier for you to get started with your development on Compact. Now, just to summarize everything that we discussed today, we are going full throttle into Hacktoberfest. We have our contributor guide that will be published later today. I will post that into the channels. Not only are we making progress with our repos, but we have our community board that Stev has been really pushing to get out there. So thank you, Stev. And now we have our MIPs improvement proposals, where not only can you contribute to the content, the code, but if you have something core that you want to update about the network, you can also propose that, follow our process, and get involved. So with that said, that is our Hacktoberfest Dev Hangout. I'll just go through some questions really quick to see if there's anything else we need to touch on. It says, can we leverage Midnight ZK framework layer without requiring us to push commitments on chain? I believe the answer is no for that. I want to say, Stev, you're a little bit more experienced than most of us. Do you have some feedback here?
I think you would have to have those commitments on chain to be available, but we can look into that more. That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Definitely need to look into it a bit more, but my initial reaction is no. Let me get more details, though, from the team. Let's talk to engineering about it. And I think from earlier in the chat, we were able to address most of these questions. I do see Lauren saying we're close to 5K subscribers. So if you're viewing, subscribe it. If you have someone else who's a friend who doesn't know about privacy enhancing technologies, send them our YouTube and have them subscribe as well. I think that's our chat for today. So I want to thank you all for joining, and I hope you all have an amazing day.